Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome to this episode of the Live Train Perform podcast. I'm your host, Sean Kober. First of all, welcome to 2022. Happy New Year to everyone around. Secondly, thank you very much for tuning in, for your support over the last year and a half since this podcast has been running. In this episode, I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite conversations, some of the thought-provoking conversations that I had with some of my guests on the podcast over the last year. So for the next 3 to 4 weeks, I'm going to be bringing you some of my favorite conversations. If there's anything that stands out for you that you really want to hear, something that impacted you, please make sure you share it to your stories or shoot me a DM at coach_Kobes, Kobes. Let me know how this podcast has impacted you. Any 5-star ratings and reviews are much appreciated. I did start a Live Train Perform Facebook forum for podcast listeners. I'm currently at 34 or 35 members. All you need to do to get into that forum is leave me a 5-star rating and review, send a screenshot to my Instagram, and or go on to the Facebook page Live Train Perform, request access, answer the questions, and let me know that you've sent through a screenshot, you have left a rating and review, and I'll give you access where you can then ask me questions, which I'll then use for podcast episodes, Q&As and things like that. It'll also give you access to other people who have guested on the podcast, so you can have a conversation with and get some information from those people who have contributed to the podcast. In the first part of the episode, I'm replaying a conversation I had with Lizzie Wright, who was based out of UFit Singapore when we had the conversation. And something that came up for her was some decisions around leaving the UK, leaving her boyfriend, leaving her corporate job to start working in the gym environment, take her PT course, and kick off that new career path, along with discussing the decisions that came up around running 120 kilometers around Singapore. Let's get this episode underway. Was there something massive that happened that kind of pushed you over the edge to make that decision, or was it like all of these small things that were adding up in all these different areas of your life where you just got to a point and you're like, this is not the environment that I want to be a part of, and you got out of that and then started recreating your own environment? Talk to me about that process.
It came over across a couple of months. Like it wasn't like I didn't just think and just change my mind. And I've done it multiple times since then. I've learned from how I want to make change. Like I sit on it. I listen to myself. I'm like, what is it you really want? Is this actually something you really want, or are you listening to anyone else's opinions? So I always really had to, and from that day, like I've homed in on exactly what it is I want. So I focus on myself, basically. I took all the selfish kind of decisions that were right for me. And it took a long time because breaking up in the relationship was like a 6-month process. Like I really wanted to give him my all. Like we're amazing together, but it just wasn't the right vision for me in terms of I wasn't ready to settle. Do you know what I mean? And I think that definitely instigated a lot in terms of the relationships and what I wanted out of life.
You weren't
But it
really
was
weren't ready to settle into that lifestyle and that
yeah,
environment.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And I think that's what then triggered everything else to be like, okay, I can do this. And it was more of like obviously transitioning into the coaching side. It was then the self-talk and saying you got to believe in yourself, you can do it. Like obviously I'm surrounded like coaches at the gym I'm at. They're amazing. Like they've got their degrees and like they've been doing and working towards this their whole lives. So for me it was a big thing. Like I'm academic to an extent, but I'm not your scientist level, so it takes me a lot to work to where I am. So it's a big decision to kind of really focus and home in and say, are you willing to study? Are you willing to give you your best, like for something completely obviously different that I spent years at uni doing? So yeah, on reflection, it definitely is a lot of steps, and I like to just have the idea. I plant the seed, just leave it for a little bit. If I keep thinking about it, then I start going, okay, right, what are you going to do to make those changes, and give myself a timeline. So like if something's really not working, I've given it my best and I know I've given it my best. And then the rest is like setting all those pillars in place to help me make that change. And that's what I did. Like I just remember enough was enough. I was like done, and I just had to go. I just had to have that conversation with the
Mm-hmm.
ex-boyfriend and all of those things, and then just with the job, it was just like saying to my bosses, I need to transition into coaching, and I took the PT course just before, like on the side, and said I'm ready to do this transition instead. Um, so yeah,
Mm. Mm. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. And
yeah,
I don't want to like dive too deep on anything like that. I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable or anything,
that's
but
okay.
I do think it is very important for people to hear these conversations,
Yeah,
because everyone has decisions to make. Life is one big fucking decision, or many,
yeah,
many decisions made, again and again and again and again. And a lot of people, not making a decision is also a decision. If you're
hundred
miserable in
percent.
your life and you don't like where you're at, and you don't create changes to get yourself out of a situation that may not be making you happy or may be making you miserable, like if you don't make those changes, like nobody's coming to save you. Like
No,
not making a decision is a decision in itself. And
yeah,
I
one
think that's
hundred
important
percent.
for people to hear is these types of stories where you were happy in some areas of your life, but then you weren't ticking the boxes in other areas, and you had to have that conversation with yourself, and you sat with it and you planted those seeds, and you're like, what's actually driving me here? What is the purpose? What am I getting out of this? Am I fulfilling those things that I've set for myself? And if you're not, then you need to do something about that. There's going to be things that make you really fucking uncomfortable in life, and if we always step away from that discomfort and we find the path of least resistance, we never ever condition ourselves to be able to deal with adversity. And another
Mm-mm.
one of my favorite quotes is like, one of the biggest skills that you can give to a child is the ability to deal with adversity. And I dealt with a lot of adversity as a child, and I fucking hated it when I was a kid and when I was growing up, but it has literally shaped the man I am today. Now, granted, I could have gone down the other route where I was, become a drug dealer and, ended up in jail or whatever, but I made that decision to get away from that position and go and pursue a different path, and that was fucking hard. And that was probably harder to make that decision than it was to stay where I was. And this is the point. It's like, choose something that you can do every day that just makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. You don't need
Mm-hmm.
to, do something crazy out there. Like, would you run you ran like a 100-mile fucking marathon or something recently? Is that
I
right?
ran 120k around Singapore. I had not really trained. I had only done two 8k runs before.
So let's talk about that, because that is literally what I'm talking about right now. Like,
Yeah.
talk to me about the mindset that went into that. Were there periods during that 120 kilometers around Singapore? How long did that take?
That took me 20 hours, maybe.
Holy shit.
Um, yeah, so I'd always had the idea of it, and I think since we haven't been able to travel at all, Singapore, if no one knows Singapore, is a very small island in Asia, and it's probably like the circumference is about 160 kilometers, or maybe 200 if you really go around the edges. But for this case, we did 120. So I had a couple of people who did it with me, and I had this vision like at the start of lockdown. I was just like, right, I want to do something. I'll tell you about the other race I did just before we went into lockdown as well, because that's the next level of 120. Why 120 felt uh, easy. Not easy. I'm not gonna lie, it was not easy, but easier. But yeah, I had the idea I wanted to do something, and I just wanted to give purpose and look back at 2020 and just be like, I fucking achieved a hell of a lot. I put myself out there on so many levels. I wanted to challenge like these challenges for me. I'm a big mountain girl, so I'm really missing mountains. Singapore, I think, goes to the height of like 150 meters, so I don't really get any kicks from that. I just went out there just thinking, right, what can I do? So the idea just came like, right, I'm going to run around Singapore. Um, and it got closer to the time, and I was like, oh, I haven't done any training for it. Like, obviously, I train all the time. I do a lot of strength training. Um, and for me, it's not just what the body can do, but it's what the mind can do. And I do it to build the resilience within me. I challenge and I want to push my mind to a limit.
That right
To
there
see
is the secret sauce.
to see how yeah, exactly. To see how I respond. I
Hmm.
like to see when I'm in pain. This all sounds so weird for other people, but I like to see when I'm in pain or when I'm struggling or um, if something's out of my control, how do I respond?
Hmm.
Um, I've still kept focus for the things I've done, so now I'm like looking for the next level. But like the 120, like we started at midnight. I think we started running at midnight up the East Coast, which is up to Changi, and it's a ridiculously long, like 45K on a strip of like nothing on the way to the airport. So you're literally running on concrete, which I'm not the biggest fan of anyway. Um, Prepared everything I needed to do, like all my hydration, all my food, planned all the stops. I went round and planned all the stops of where I needed to go, so at least I had that. Um, and yeah, we went with there were four of us, but then one got injured, so she had to drop out, and then three of us got to the finish. But it was an amazing 20 hours of getting to know two people who I didn't know, for starters. That's
Hmm.
why I love that stuff, because you get to know people in that span of a time like that no one else has ever seen. Um,
Uh, I think
yeah,
there's also something else there as well that I want to talk about,
yeah, go for it.
that I've experienced myself. And here's the thing, like, you fucking build an amazing bond with people that you go through some really fucking hard things with,
Hmm.
adversity. And this is something that has come up for me numerous times. People are like, what's it like being in the military? Like, why are those guys, your best mates? Why are you so close with them? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I've been through some of the best times in my life with these guys by my side, but I've also been through some of the fucking worst times of my life with these guys by my side. We're all going through the same thing. And I think there's something special about sharing adversity with other
Hmm.
people. Next up is Will Foden. Great conversations with Will. Every time I talk to him, we go down the rabbit hole and we dive quite deep into the weeds on topics surrounding the fitness industry and the different tools and techniques that we're using with our clients, and the facts and fallacies surrounding the fitness industry. Always great conversations. But in this conversation, we discuss how to build mental resilience, and also why it's important to educate your clients, because education breeds compliance. Let's go. Your mindset is like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, if you allow yourself to, if you're looking for shit, you're going to find it. And the more you're looking for it, the more you're going to find, right? So that creates his fucking avalanche, man. So I'm a big believer in like always trying to find the positives, bro. I recorded a podcast, I think it was like within a week of New Year's. I can't remember if it was the end of last year or the start of this year, but it was reflect to project. And a big point that I was talking about there is like, obviously 2020 has been a bad year for a lot of people and blah, blah, but I was like, I actually had a lot of fucking growth. I started this podcast. I've now got, 110 odd episodes out and roughly 27,000 downloads, man. And I'm actually coming up to almost a year, bro, of podcasting, which is on 24th of May has been a year, bro, of podcasting. So it's been really cool. But, I was also focusing on, study. I was studying my anatomy and physiology. I was studying Thai. I was studying blah, blah, blah. I was working on all of these things. And in that podcast, I was talking about, I didn't have the best year. Like, I lost one of my mates to suicide. I lost one of my rugby coaches who was a massive mentor for me when I left home at 14 and was, learning how to play rugby. And I had this rugby team around me that were all adults, and I'm like 16, 17 playing with the adults. He was a massive mentor for me, man, that had a huge impact on my life. I lost him last year, my pops going downhill with Alzheimer's, and, I had heaps of shit go on. But I always look back and I'm like, I'm grateful. I'm not grateful that my mate died, took his own life, but I'm grateful that, he finally found peace. And I'm grateful that, once he passed, it came out that he'd actually helped about 20 other dudes, man. There wasn't any names named or anything, but apparently he'd helped like 20 other dudes come back from the cliff, sort their shit out, get their life back on track, man. And, we wouldn't have known that if he hadn't have taken his own life. And I was like, I messaged one of his best mates, man. And I'm like, dude, I'm so fucking sorry to hear. I just hope that he found peace in his final breaths. And he was like, I tell you right now, brother, he did. He was at peace, man. You know, so
deep,
there's always, bro, there's always positives to take out of anything in life, man. You've just got to fucking look for them, and you've also got to reframe. I think that's a very important thing because, as you said, bro, this all happens between the ears, right? Like your biochemistry affects your emotions, and your emotions affect your physiology, right? And then which affects your hormones, and like it's a fucking self-fulfilling prophecy, man. And if you're spiraling and you've got these negative thoughts constantly in your head, it's very difficult to put the brakes on. It's much easier to build momentum, it's much easier to maintain momentum than it is to build it. But once you start building momentum, either in a positive manner or in a negative manner, like it's very difficult to turn that around. So I'm a big believer in always trying to put a positive spin on something so that you can move yourself in the right direction, reframing things. And we've spoken about this before, NLP, right? The neuro-linguistic programming. It's like how you speak to yourself is going to determine how you react, how you respond to certain things.
Absolutely, man. It's something that, I'll push a question to you. It's not my podcast, but I'm going to question you, brother.
Of course, bro.
Where did you first learn that? Because you're older than me. You look a lot younger than me and you're better looking than me, but you're fucking older than me. But more to the point of where did you... Because it seems as if, like, again, from the outside world, there's so many people that are affected from the military, especially, and in your job, a high pressure job. You're like the professional rugby player of the military. Where did you first learn? Because there must have been times. I've read out Middleton's book about how he's a fucking nutter when he was younger, and now he's so cool and collected. It'd be interesting to hear your side of where you found that moment of. It's not just the growth mindset, because I think it's more than that. It's sort of what is there anything particular that you sort of clung on to that sort of taught you that narrative, or?
I think it's life, bro. Life has been the biggest teacher for me. You know, I came from a poor family. My stepdad was abusive. I left home when I was 14. You know, I had to go and forge my own path. And that's because, like, I didn't want those traits, those characters, the character traits that my stepdad had to bleed over into my life. And I knew that the environment that I was in was not serving me, man. And whilst it was fucking scary to go, you know what, I'm going to leave home. I don't want to be here. You know, I was getting caught up with the wrong crowd or stealing and doing drugs and shit. And I was like, you know, if I continue down this path, it's not going to be a good place. So whilst it was scary to go, you know what, I'm going to leave here at 14. I'm going to leave home at 14 years old. I'm going to move to another state. I'm going to leave school, leave my family, leave my friends. I'm going to go and start work and get into the workforce, man. Like, I was more afraid of staying where I was and what was going to happen with my life if I didn't change anything than I was walking out into the big, wide, open world, you know? So, having that mindset of, taking chances and going, I'm not happy with where I am right now. I need to make a decision, because not making a decision is a decision in itself, right? So, you know, I had numerous like big moments in my life, big, massive crossroads where I had to make a big decision. And, you know, for the most part, man, I took that step. I made that jump, and that's how I ended up in Thailand, bro. I walked away from a relationship with a girl that I loved and cared about because I wasn't getting the opportunities that I wanted living in Tasmania. I wanted to work with professional athletes, you know, but I'd already gone through all of these monumental decisions in my life that had always worked out. Now, the reason they'd worked out is probably because I was like, I'm just going to make this decision. I'm going to fucking follow through with it. And I'm going to do the best I can to put myself in a fucking good position to take hold of any opportunities that come up. So I think that's a big thing. And that's something that I've learned over time, man.
Yeah. One thing that I'm big on is, like, when this does end, where are you going to be? Because COVID will stop and we'll have a vaccine or whatever. It will pass. But there's going to be some people that are moving forward who are going to hit the ground running and are going to smash it as soon as it opens up, whether you're in lockdown or not. And there's also going to be so many guys that are stuck at the bottom of the water, of the pool, and they're going to be blaming everybody. They're going to be angry. They're going to not have anything behind them to think, actually, do you know what? I can take control of this. But it comes down to the value system that you have on the current situation. I think that's what is important.
Yeah, man. I love that whole statement that you just said then. And I mean, this is the whole idea of the Coach's Corner. For those listening who have been following the podcast for a while, I was just talking to Will off air about, what the goal is with the podcast. And, I still want to continue with a lot of the themes that I've been doing with my 5-minute fitness tips and my mini series on nutrition and sleep and stress management, all that type of stuff. But I also want to focus on, getting on really good coaches and having good conversations about, the questions that I'm getting from my clients, listeners, followers, the questions that they're getting from their listeners, followers, etc. So we can workshop it. We can talk about this stuff in real time and, give this information to people and have it as a resource for us to send people to. So basically what I want to do is get someone like Will on once a month, and he will bring in, 3 frequently asked questions that he gets from his clients. And then we'll sit down, we'll workshop that, and we'll release that over, 2, 3, 4 episodes or whatever. And then I'll get on the next coach, and then I'll get on the next coach. And, it'll be, I kind of want to build a network of trustworthy coaches that people can fucking rely upon to give them good quality information and cut through the bullshit. We're not trying to sell something. We're trying to give people the information to get to the start point. Like that, and that's, that was the big thing. We were talking about John's episode before, John Latoc's episode, and, some of the things we took out of that. And something that he said that I was like, that is so spot on is, our job as coaches, everyone comes to us and they're like, I want to change my body composition. I want to improve performance. I want to lose a heap of weight. I want to fucking this and that and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, our job as coaches is to strip everything back and go, all right, let's get you into a place where you're at the start line, ready to fucking roll, because most people are not there yet. And I think Luke Lehman says it with his Muscle Nerds course is like, let's prep the prep.
Absolutely. And it's probably the biggest thing that I found over the last few years is that prep the prep. And it's not necessarily, people assume that we're talking about bodybuilding prep, as in prepping for a bodybuilding comp. It's not. You're preparing yourself to take the next step in everything, whether it's your sleep, rest, digestion, whether your psychology, spirituality is also a big one. I think people are very much, they're frightened of standing up for something. They all feel they feel vindicated, or they don't when they don't actually put their line in the sand and say, this is what I mean. That's probably why people actually listen to you, is that you have a voice and you have an opinion and you can back it. Whereas I find a lot of people are frightened because they haven't got the adequate knowledge, because they haven't searched in the right places. What they do is they pick off bullshit off Instagram without, because they're following people that aren't providing information that we were talking about. I think one cool thing about that is that the listeners will hear coaching in real life. You're going to hear us spitting and talking about things and working our way around it, because coaching is not a black and white thing. That's what people are. So it's such a hard thing, because it depends, or I'm not sure, we'll see, or it happens in every conversation, and it can be frustrating. Yeah. But starting with the end in mind and reverse engineering, it's important. But we all have to understand that the end game is not the end game, because it's like when you play sport, you finish sport and then you've still got whatever the rest of your life left. So you can't just say, well, I played this final game, I'm done, because you wake up the next day. It's a huge part of what I'm sort of discovering myself.
Yeah, man, that's a good point. And it's constant learning, it's constant education, it's constant feedback, and it's, people are jigsaw puzzles, and we need to fucking figure out what tool is going to be appropriate for that person at that particular time in their life. And that's our job as coaches, man, is to acquire as many tools as we can, that we can then, get as many tools in the toolbox as we can, so that every single person that comes up to us, they say, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that, blah, blah, blah. And we dive into, all of the other shit, like to get them to the start line. Because most people come to us and they're like, hey, I want a training program, I want a nutrition plan. And it's like, all right, cool, I can give you that, but are you actually going to get the most out of that? Because if you're not sleeping well and you've been dieting for fucking 2 years, you've created metabolic adaptation, you work a high stress job, you're in a bad relationship and whatever, man, like all of these things come into play. And yes, we can give someone we can give every single fucking person the same training plan, literally, and the same nutrition plan. And, some people are going to fucking thrive on that, but that's going to be like 5% of people. And those 5% of people are going to thrive on that training plan because they're getting enough sleep. they're hydrating, they're eating the right amount of food at the right times in the right ratios, they're managing their stress, they're in a fucking good position to be able to optimize that 1 hour of training, right? And I say it all the time, manage the other 23 hours of the day so that you can optimize that 1 hour. And to round out the episode, I'm speaking to Adrian Allen, who was a coach at Unit 27, which is one of the gyms just down the road from Tiger Muay Thai where I work. We had a great conversation to start the year where we discussed the effect of your environment and how stress plays a part in how you should be training in terms of performance and recovery. A lot of people have tried to replicate this gym model in other areas of the world. And it's very fucking difficult to do. And the reason being is that for anyone who hasn't been to Soi Thai in Geelong in Phuket, Thailand, is like it's 1.5 kilometer long street that's full of fucking gyms. There's like 10 to 12 gyms, strength and conditioning gyms. There's mixed martial arts gyms. There's BJJ. There's Muay Thai. Everything, and the entire street is catered towards health and fitness. Like, it's difficult to get shitty food, unhealthy food. The entire street is basically built around the gyms, because the gyms are what bring people in, and it's a destination. People literally come to Thailand, to Soi Thai to train, and that's how I ended up there the first time. I was backpacking through Southeast Asia, and I'd spent a month on the road. I'd done Malaysia, had gone over to Patong in Phuket, and I was like, fuck man, I've been on the road for a month. I'm drinking piss. I'm just feeling sluggish. I'm not feeling good about myself. And I had a couple of mates that had been to Tiger Muay Thai previously, so I got in contact with them, and I was like, sweet. So I called tuk over and spent a week training, and then continued traveling through Southeast Asia. Went over to Europe for 3 months. I spent 6 months on the road, and then on the way home, I was like, well, we've been in Europe, like eating and drinking, like let's pull into Tiger Muay Thai and train again. And every year, man, so I came twice in 2013. I was like, this is somewhere I want to live. This is somewhere I want to be. Set myself up for 6 months to a year, live and work here. Yeah. And then over the years, I kept coming back. I had my own strength and conditioning business, PT business in Tasmania, in Australia. And every year I'd, take 3 or 4 months off and go traveling with my ex-girlfriend, and she'd go to India or Bali or something and do some, coursework with yoga or something. Yeah. And I'd come to Thailand and I'd spend a month here, and I'd train and go to the beach in the afternoon. Like I'd train in the morning and, work on my online coaching business, write up PDF documents for my clients, write up programs, do courses and things like that, and then I'd go to the beach in the afternoon. It was a fucking awesome lifestyle, man. But it is a destination gym, so trying to replicate this business model in other areas of the world, it's very difficult, and so many people, so many businesses have failed trying to do that. Yeah, that is the case. And when I was there on the street, it's the feeling you get when you get onto the side, let's call it, that's what it's called. And that's what I love to refer it by. And I think when people have tried to replicate it, people from all over the world come, they see the street, they see the gyms, they see the community, the vibe is on another level. And, a lot of people, I suppose 99% of people are like solo travelers when they get there, and then they're free of anything, like, no judgment, no anything else. And it's easy to do what you need to do. We don't need to sell it any more than it's already been sold. It's like it has everything you actually need on a street that's 1.5 kilometers long, and when you go to other places, you have the people that have come, they've seen it. You'd have businessmen, you have everything, businessmen, teachers, nurses, just general people that just want a holiday. And some people will come for a week or two and realize how much it is good for their health and be like, okay, I'm staying. Like, how many times have you seen someone go down to immigration and say, no, I haven't left, or even due to leave tomorrow or this evening, it's like, no, I can't leave. And we keep coming back, and there is a reason. You can't buy the reason why everyone keeps coming back, because the people are there, the gyms are there, what you're getting yourself into, the style of training, the restaurants, the food, and the accommodation is on another level. Yeah, I think it's the environment as well, man.
Yeah.
Like, so many people come from all over the world for many, many different reasons, but for a lot of the same reasons. It's always to better themselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's to break drug addictions, and sometimes it's to lose fucking 50 kilos or whatever, work through a relationship breakdown or whatever it might be. Everyone's there for different reasons, but a lot of the same reasons. And it's one of those things that the environment is so positive, man. Like I said, it's a lot of people come and they don't have the same stresses that they have at home, and they don't have to worry so much about, the day-to-day stresses that life brings. They don't have all of those distractions. And I think that's why the business model works so well here. And that's also the reason why it doesn't work in other locations. It's because, you can't replicate these conditions. You can't replicate this environment, on a day-to-day basis. Trying to live that as your life every day, it is a destination. And it is, let's talk about that, because it's obviously different traveling through here compared to living here. What was the differences that you noticed yourself?
I suppose when you do mention about the environment, I suppose I would have been a bit blind to the fact when I went there as well, even to work, to live there, when I decided this is where I wanted to stay, was, I was still trying to figure my stuff out as well. And I have this saying in my head, and I've said it to a few people as well. It's like, why does no one will come on a fitness holiday because everything is okay? If everything is okay, a fitness holiday is probably not where you're going to go on. But the more I was there, and over the years, I realized, just like you said, like the stresses of work. Like, yes, I had the stresses of doing the mining, and then I would come to Thailand. But you forget you're nearly a mirror of the people you meet. And I was blind to the fact of why people were coming to train so much, or why people were returning. Because probably I didn't get to know people enough on, I suppose, on an emotional level. They come in, they want to be pushed, you give that to them. And then when you're finished coaching, like, you can't catch up with the amount of people that come through that gym or any gym on the street on a day-to-day business, or else you would have a full-time job outside of the gym as well, So it's very hard. Yeah. It's only after, I believe, after a couple, like maybe a year and a half of me being there, that I realized, okay, people have really stressful jobs, and we're very fortunate that we are now living the life that we kind of put out for ourselves by living and coaching in Thailand. And then it's a lot easier to communicate with people on that level, and to figure out what it is you can do better to make their experience more enjoyable while they are here. So yeah, that was definitely something that took me quite a while to figure out while I was there. And then being on the street, the difference, I suppose, between working there and you're working, have a full-time job, and you get your 2 feet around the ground, and you are there to improve people's lives. And it's like, I couldn't believe that I was the one that had that job. When we went into Tiger, first of all, you meet all the coaches and you see the job they're doing, you're like, oh my God, how will I, how are these people? Because you put them all on a pedestal, like we do, and rightfully so. I wouldn't say anyone should put me in a pedestal, but it was great to see those people that were standing in front of me telling me what to do, improving my life on a day-to-day basis, and having that job that we do have there. Like, you don't even call it a job, it's a passion, and it was absolutely fantastic, and it's something I will never ever forget, and hopefully I will continue to do in other areas of the world.
Yeah, man, you made a really good point there about it being a passion. This is something that I fucking love. This is something that I kind of fell into after my army career. I was like, what do I want to do with myself? I enjoy training, and I enjoy coaching people through training. And again, tying back into what you said before, a lot of people come from these stressful lives, these stressful jobs, and they come to Tiger or they come to the Soy, and, they want to fucking work hard and they want to train hard. And here's the thing, they can when they're in that environment, because now they've, all of the other stresses and distractions of life have faded away. So now they can push themselves hard during the training sessions. And, like you said, people will book a week and then they end up staying for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, whatever, and it's a really fucking good lifestyle, because, those distractions and stresses have melted away, and they are in a good environment with good people, eating good food, getting sunshine, going to the beach, training well, looking after themselves, etc. And something that I realized as a coach very, very quickly was, it's all well and good to get people results whilst they're in Thailand for 2 weeks, but my fucking job is to teach them the tools and the techniques and the strategies. Yeah, give them a good time, give them some hard workouts whilst they're in Thailand, but also give them some strategies that they can use whilst they're at home. Educate them on these other aspects that is going to allow them to, manage the other 23 hours of their day rather than just hammering themselves during that 1 hour training session. I mean, if they're going to hammer themselves in that 1 hour training session, a lot of people want to do that, then we need to manage the other 23 hours. We need to make sure that they're getting enough sleep, they're drinking enough water, they're eating the right amount of nutrients in the right ratios and all that type of stuff. And there we have it, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in to the first episode of 2022. Over the next couple of weeks, I'll be bringing you some of my favorite conversations from some of the Client Corner episodes, followed up by some of the interviews that I've done with some amazing people in their own industries. Thanks, guys. Much love. Peace.